Curious how a new product can shake up an entire industry? In this episode, we go behind the scenes with Jason Freshwater to learn how he launched his game changing fillers, boosters, and neurotoxins, taking it from concept to market buzz. Jason shares the real challenges, breakthrough moments, and what it takes to disrupt the beauty space with a product everyone's talking about. If you want to know what launching a hit really looks like, this is the episode for you. Let's get to it. Welcome to Glow Up and Get Real. I'm Amy Engel, the Sweetface Injector business owner and trainer. Every week, we're injecting the latest on MediSpa trends, client concerns, and the boldest new treatments out there. Want the latest in safety, advanced techniques, and business strategies? You're in the right place. So, let's glow up, get real, and level up your beauty game. Welcome to Glow Up and Get Real. I am the Sweetface Injector, and here today I have Jason Freshwater. He started his career in 2001 selling capital equipment to include X-ray and radiology supplies. From 2003 to 2010, he went into specialty pharmaceuticals to include dermatology and OBGYN. Jason then launched Disport, sold Restylane in 2010, and later Sculptra. He also relaunched Artifil, Bellafil, as well as Versa HA. Later in 2019, he launched Jeuveau at Evolus and then moved to Perlinium to sell Versa full-time. Currently, Jason works independently managing Ryan Aesthetics, which provides platelet, skin science exosomes, regenerative solutions for skin and hair. So welcome, Jason, to Glow Up and Get Real. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Just going over your bio, wow, you've done so many launches. So you have a really good foundation for how the industry works in aesthetics. And I can't wait to hear your answers. So let's get started. Can you walk us through your sales approach when launching a new medical aesthetics product?
Yeah, so I think it's the same approach that I took even in the pharmaceutical world. That's kind of where I started my career, and it's a lot of studying and a lot of data intake. I think knowing the product as best as you can is the first step, but also knowing what else is on the market. Competitive information is super important, and you don't always want to glean information just from your marketing people. You actually want to go and kind of hunt for it on yourself, so there's no slanted view, right? Competitive information comes from your company. It's going to have a slant on it. So I think I've always done that from the beginning. Go out and seek answers and figure out, where we want to go with the product and how to do it. So that's kind of the first thing, is a lot of hardcore studying and competitive information. But then also, you want to be able to solve a problem or have a solution maybe for a practice that's struggling with something, or even if they're not struggling, you want to convey, this is what this can do for your practice or for your patients. So that's kind of the basis that I've always done when I'm launching something, is figure out the product, figure out the talk track, figure out the competitive landscape, and then how can I help a practice or a patient? Because sometimes, you have products that maybe don't benefit the physician or the practice, but it really is a benefit to the patient. And if obviously the clinician, wants something better for their patient, they're going to gravitate towards that.
Yeah, I could see that's a good strategy. I like that.
Yeah.
What was your biggest challenges when you faced relaunching Artifil, Bellafil?
Yeah. So, well, the name itself was a challenge. Artifil, launched in the mid 2000s, and the technology was really good, but there were some downfalls to how they launched it, and they went in and actually took a lot of investment, which was a newer stance in the industry, especially in the aesthetic industry. They took a lot of investment from physicians around the country. They went and drummed up business and got a lot of physicians involved, because a long lasting derma filler was new and unique, that nothing had existed. It didn't exist at the time. And Sculptra wasn't actually on the market and approved yet in the aesthetic arena when Artifil was kind of coming up. Fortunately, there was a lot of mismanagement with that launch, a lot of mismanagement with the money. There wasn't great training. So the company actually collapsed, but the assets were bought by another group. And they actually kept a couple of reps through this whole time. It was about 5 years. There was only about 3 or 4 reps in the country selling Artifil. The new group came in and had a completely different outlook and knew that the long lasting filler, this was, 2011, 2012 timeframe. They knew that temporary fillers were great, but people were seeking at that point, an option for a longer lasting filler. And so it was a ton when we basically relaunched the product and under the Bellafil name here in the US because that's what they had it named in Canada. So the name wasn't new to North America, it just was new to the US. We relaunched under Bellafil and it was a heavy lift to educate people. There's a lot of education and a lot of training that went into Bellafil because it answered two things that after coming out of the temporary filler game with Restylane and Perlane, it answered two questions. How long does it last and how much does it cost? That's really all patients and clinicians want to know, And after doing my due diligence and studying the product and kind of understanding what that could do for a patient or for the practice, we were able to kind of craft that storyline. And it's not for everybody. It's not for every injector and it's not for every patient. That's the other thing that you kind of narrow down your pool of people that you can work with the product, but it is a spectacular product. I mean, if it's for somebody looking for a long lasting derma filler, if they kind of got that filler fatigue, it was a great option, but it had a lot of challenges and it was a lot of heavy lift and a lot of legwork to get people to understand how to use it and why they're using it.
Hmm.
And that it wasn't for everybody, and that was kind of the change that we took. And then the second part of that was the profitability. It was and probably still is the most profitable filler I've ever sold, hands down, because of the pricing that you could get the syringes at, but what it did for a patient because it was almost like Sculptra. It had that, Sculptra was like in that 2 year run. This was like FDA approved at 5 years, but you could build up to where you wanted to go. So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges, but that's kind of how we approached it, was to basically relaunch it and re-educate the entire group of physicians that brought it in.
Yeah. In my experience, I have never seen a Bellafil rep in the last 8 years that I've been doing this. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Isn't that funny? I was there almost 6 years. So, I mean, yeah, but it's a very niche, category. It's
yeah.
not for everybody.
I think
Yeah.
more plastic surgeons use it, don't you think, than boutique med spas?
I think originally, yeah, and probably still, I wouldn't disagree with you on that. I think that when we kind of relaunched it in about, I guess it was 2013 is really when we got going with that relaunch going into 2014. We did have a lot of med spas actually pick it up and use it. Unfortunately, there were people that wanted to use it much like an HA. And it
Mm,
just you can't use it in that way. It's not designed to do that. Again, it comes with a whole bag of consequences when you do that. And that's the problem. That's what scares people. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And again, I think it was, it's the educational part and training to get them to understand. And if that wasn't done at the rep level, it was a recipe for disaster, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think plastics and there's I don't think there's probably very few derms that have picked that product up and used it at a high level. It's mainly plastics or med spas. Yeah.
Mhm. And you can't dissolve that, right? There's not a way to like you
So yeah, I mean the polymethacrylate methacrylate is the PMMA is the active ingredient in that product, and it's like 50 to 100 microns in size, so it's smaller than a white blood cell. It's very, very, very microscopic. So when people tell me, "Oh, I have a bulge, I have nodules, I have this," that to me indicates that it's not necessarily the actual active ingredient. It's that there was too much product placed in one area, and then your tissue engulfed it because it thinks that there's something there. Again, so that's
Okay.
unfortunately, user dependent. Like if
Mhm.
you don't, but yeah, no, you're not going to dissolve the actual product. They have histology information out 10 years, and there's remnants of it in the PMMA.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
did have a client that came in and that had Bellafil and had a little lump on his cheek. So
Mhm.
I used Kenalog and that seemed to really help soften that and flatten it out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Which is again, it's more of a, like it's a tissue engulfment. It's not necessarily the actual product. So you really weren't dissolving. You're just dissolving what was around all of those because it works similar to Sculptra, to be
Mm,
quite honest.
mhm.
The polylactic acid in Sculptra, when it opens, it bursts like that, and you get that stimulation. The PMMA did the same, but you wanted to deposit it in these linear small threads almost, right? Where they're long and kind of wispy. You don't want to be heavy on the plunger and get it into a spot, right? That's where you got in trouble. But it still would stimulate that collagen. Honestly, the active ingredient, the PMMA, is actually inert. Your body doesn't react to that. It reacts to the trauma it's causing in the tissue, right? And wants to build that matrix of collagen around it to heal it. Just the same as what you would get with Sculptra, but more of an instant fill that lasted, a couple months before the PMMA actually kicked in. So
Okay.
you got the kind of the best of both worlds. And again, it had its complications for sure. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
what would you say your most successful product launch has been, and what made it successful?
Yeah, that's a great question because I've had a lot, but I think the most successful for me personally was Disport. Disport for sure was my most successful long term launch, and I know for me personally what it did, and how I did when we launched it in the first 4 years. Being in the same territory after leaving the company and see other people that have come in and picked up the product and where they've taken it, they had a massive base of business to start with. So that's kind of me when I look back. I see like, how big Disport has become. Obviously, Galderma picked up those assets, and we've had some really, really, really talented reps in this area have Disport and grow it from what I started. But by far, for me, the most successful new product launch that I've been involved with. Yeah,
Okay, cool. So, how do you keep up then with the latest trends? I know you
yeah.
talked about your education, but what's your secret sauce?
I ask questions. I mean, I'm curious to ask questions, and I don't snub my nose at anything. I learned a long time ago, kind of like with job offers, as good as you're doing or as great as you might like what you're doing, always listen. Always be open to listen. Back in 2020, I actually was exposed to, I was at a meeting, I was exposed to Benev exosome technology at a meeting I was at. They were at the booth next to me, and I didn't know what an exosome was, never really heard about it. And I was curious, I think it's curiosity. You have to be, you want to ask questions, you want to know how things work, what happens. This is a big thing now, Dr. Subio, and always like just ask questions. It's not wrong. You're not in the wrong to ask and want to know more. And don't take one word. So for me, that's what I do. I'm always curious. Is There's so much innovation and so much technology and new things coming out. Again, if I had not been curious to know what an exosome was or how it worked back then, it wouldn't have led me to what I know now and coming here to Rion, to
Mhm,
sell a platelet derived exosome. So yeah, that's for me. I mean, kind of always just asking questions, being open to what's on the market, not trying to understand it.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say don't ever close doors.
Yeah.
Even if you're
That's
not
right.
interested, don't close that door because you never know
That's
what's
right.
gonna swing back around.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah. So, then what do you see as the biggest changes in the aesthetic industry of the last 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I really, in my opinion, I feel like it used to be early on in, 2005, 6, 7. Restylane launched in '04. That was the first hyaluronic acid on the market that lasted 6 months. Before that, we had bovine collagen was kind of the mainstay for filler. Botox launched, I think in '03 or '02, right around that way in cosmetic. It was very, very much secretive back then and remained that way for a long time. People didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want like anybody to know they're having stuff done. So I think that we have transitioned out of that and it's more mainstream,
Yeah.
way more mainstream. And especially over the last 8 years to 10 years, it's become kind of commonplace. And then the other thing I noticed has changed is that the age has dropped. I mean, there's people in their mid 20s now. You know this. I don't need to tell you. It's a younger population of people that are getting toxins and maybe dabbling in some filler, especially in the lip filler area. So that has changed a lot. But I also the advancements that have come out are prolific in my opinion. I mean, what we have access to now that we didn't 5, 10 years ago to be able to treat different modalities or different things going on with folks with really, really good technology that legitimately works. You know this, right? We've had this conversation in the past. There's a lot of devices, energy based devices out there. in the past that they were okay. Not a patient selection. You could get results, but it was a lot to get a patient there. Not all of them wowed you. I think we now have some platforms that they've created that do a lot and really change someone within 2 treatments, 3 treatments of having things done
Mhm.
for the better. And I think that's changed a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. So when you were selling to dermatologists, which I believe you still do, right? Is that
I
one of
do,
your—
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, versus boutique med spas, what key
yeah.
objections do you encounter and how do you address them? Because it's a totally different situation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And again, it goes back to what I originally learned when I first got into pharmaceuticals, which was um, heavy education. I mean, they're very, very scientific driven derms, and they want to see the studies, they want to see data. So that was kind of, again, when you originally asked me how I launched something, that's why I always start there because that was how I was brought up in the industry. If you didn't know your product or you couldn't tell the derm the answer to the question they were looking for, it's unsettling. So you better figure it out or
Yeah. You don't wanna look like a
know it
fool.
or yeah, so they're very much driven by data and analytics in that manners. And they're a little bit more reserved to take up new technology. They really are. There's not a lot of derms that are at the forefront on the aesthetic side of bringing things in and do it. They like to wait and see. So it's more analytical, more data driven in that aspect for which the information you're giving them in the beginning, and then it a lot of times comes down to pricing. And you got to understand, like, not maybe not a lot of people understand, a dermatologist, not every dermatologist has aesthetics. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if we're talking about a doctor or a dermatologist who has aesthetics in his practice, there's a lot more massaging going on. Again, you got to start with the science, you got to start with that. But then it's okay, how does it benefit my practice monetarily? And then how does it benefit patients? So that's the talk track. On the other side, like with med spas and boutique med spas, they're much more open to new technology. They kind of want the latest and greatest. If their patients are paying cash, right? They really want to know that what you're offering them is something that's innovative and new. And so they're med spas are much more open to listening and kind of taking in, like, hey, how does this work, why does it work, and boom, they do it.
Mhm.
Where I think it's a bit of a longer turn with the dermatologist to get something in. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I believe that's true as well. So can you describe a time when you turned around a struggling territory or a product line?
Oh, it would have to be Bellafil, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because Artifil, Bellafil was on the market already. It was already out before I got there. Very, very unsuccessful. I had one provider in my entire territory. So my territory back then went from Naples to St. Pete, but I also had West Palm to Jacksonville. So I had like the two
Oh,
opposing
wow.
coasts in Florida. It was a really bizarre territory, but that's what they had to give me to get me over to the company because I was leaving. Valiant had bought Medicis at the time. I was there about a year. That's how I picked up Sculptra and was not going well. Like Valiant was not a good spot to be. Had I known Galderma was going to buy those assets, I would have stayed
Right?
another 6 months. I got so to go over to Geneva, I had to get a really odd territory. I had one person. Think about that. Naples to St. Pete, West Palm to Jacksonville. I had one person here in Fort Myers that had Artifil listed on his website, or on his website, but he didn't really use it. It was just like he had it once, did a training, and that was it. So very, very unsuccessful the territory was,
Yeah.
and I was doing over $1 million a year
Wow.
with the territory. Again, that was probably the most successful turnaround that I've been involved with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know once it came out in, like, marketing,
Mhm.
people were asking for it.
Yeah.
I've had clients ask me about it. Not recently, but in the past I have.
Yeah. Yeah, the company did do a good job of getting their marketing assets up to par and having people speak about it at podium across the country at meetings, all that stuff, supporting sales helps for sure, but it's a long turn. It doesn't happen right away. But yeah, you're
Mhm.
right. I mean, they definitely have a bigger footprint than they used to.
I think too, I have a lot of clients that say, well, 5 years is a long time. And what if I
Yeah.
don't like it?
Yeah.
And so they opt for like HA, which lasts, anywhere from a year to 2 years. So it's
Yeah.
funny how, the mindset is. And I think it goes in waves too. I think
I would agree with you. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So what metrics do you use to measure your own sales effectiveness?
I always look at I've had the benefit of being in an area for 25 years, which is rare, I think, in a lot of cases. A lot of reps will either move territories or when they move companies, they might actually, yeah, have to leave and go somewhere else, or they call on different specialties. I've been in the dermatology sales, world since 2002, but here in this territory, Naples to Tampa, since 2003.
Mm,
So
long
I
time.
always measure if someone lets me back in, if I carry new products, I think that's a win for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like they know right away like I'm going to bring them something that is legit. It's going to do something to benefit again them or their patients. But I also measure what's the reorder rate of these people I'm working with. Are they reordering? And again, like there's a lot of metrics people look at and cut up. And right now, I just got a report on Friday of last week. I'm the highest out of 14 reps right now in my region that has the highest reorder rate.
Wow, congratulations. That's
Right, right.
amazing.
I mean, for me, that's a big deal. That means
Yeah.
that what I'm conveying to them and what they're understanding about my product and what it's doing for the practice and patient, it works. It's
Hmm.
there, you know. So that's one of the things. I mean, a lot of people can look at sales and you're up and down and you're doing great and pushing a lot of product. But for me, it's do they let you in and are they reordering what you're selling them and what you're telling them? That's
Hmm.
something that I really measure myself at.
Yeah, you definitely have to have the trust first.
Yeah.
And then once that trust comes in, if your product doesn't work, then you've lost.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
That's right. And measuring also to me, I look at am I doing what's right for the customer? There are multiple times that I've taken it right on the chin monetarily, right? Because it wasn't right to push someone to order something just for me to hit a goal. Like it wasn't right for their business. And I really, really, really try to maintain that line where, maybe some people in the industry, they don't care. They want to get, hey, they want to hit their commission, they want to hit their bonus. I get it. There's just times where I've not done that and it's been the right call. And that's what allows me, I think that, my customers I've worked with for a long time, they understand that that's important to me. Your business is important to me. And I don't want to, put it in jeopardy to be selfish. Right. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell us about your experience launching Disport, Restylane, and Jeuveau. What were your unique selling points for each, and how did you position them in the market?
yeah, I'll start with Restylane because it was out first. I didn't actually launch Restylane; it was already on the market. So when
Okay.
I joined Medisys, that was the only aesthetic product they had. Medisys on the Medisys Aesthetics is the company that owned the rights here in the U.S. to distribute and sell Restylane, and then they secured the rights for Disport. So Restylane was already kind of the machine was going when by about 4 years by the time I got it. But Disport, I was involved in the launch of it, and it was tough because Botox was already a juggernaut. I mean, that was it. It was it's most people when they go in to get toxin, they don't say toxin or neurotoxin, they say Botox, right? You and I know this. We've always
Right.
had these conversations. People don't know that. Yeah, exactly. It's not a tissue. It's Kleenex, right? That's what
Mm.
they call it. So that was a very difficult task to get people to really trust and go with Disport. And so we launched it in originally, it didn't go so well. The first probably 8 months that we had it on the market, it wasn't going well because the providers were so confused at the messaging that I think, and it's because a lot of the legwork prior to launching Disport, people were saying, we don't care. We want an option. We want options. We don't want to be tied to just one with like Botox or, these back then Botox was increasing their price every year, which they still do.
Yeah.
All of them do it. But back then they were, physicians were getting so upset that they wanted an option. And then in price was a driver, was what we were told, right? And a lot of preliminary things. So we would do these focus groups and they would say, we don't care if it's $25 less than Botox per vial, we're going to use Disport. So that's kind of what the marketing team went with. That actually wasn't true because there was a conversion with Disport versus Botox that dealt with math. And I found out real quick that a lot of physicians and clinicians don't like math.
No. But we use it every day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was the first hurdle,
Uh-huh.
was to get them to understand that the dilution was different and it would work if you would just, do the dilution. But then we kind of figured out, okay, well, if we tell them it's a 1.25, it makes it the exact same as Botox And then we really started to trek once we kind of got it easier for them. And then we did the marketing team transition a little bit, and they did a really, really cool marketing campaign where they let um, patients come in, and if you got Disport, you would get, I think it was $75 off.
Was
When
this
you
before
came back,
Allie or was this
oh, yeah, this was back in 2000 and, we did this in 2011, I think? Yeah,
okay.
2000, like 10, 11, because we launched in '09, so it was like 10, 11. This was one of the most successful campaigns I've ever been in, and it was ingenious. If they came in, they got $75 off the treatment. If you came back for your second treatment, it didn't matter if you got Botox or you got Dysport on your second time, you were still gonna get $75. Didn't matter, right? So the first time you had to get Disport. Second time, you were still going to get your $75, but you could get whatever you chose.
Oh, those are the old
90
days.
98% of the patients that came back in this campaign chose Disport.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it wasn't about the money, right? People were like, oh yeah, they're gonna get no, we were gonna if they got Botox, we were gonna give them $75. It didn't matter. That campaign was so successful and really showed like it doesn't always have to be about money. That's super important in the aesthetic market, but there are some things that people like better. It kicked in faster,
Mhm,
it lasted longer, right? Those are facts. We didn't like that wasn't marketing compared to Botox at the time, you know?
mhm,
So that was how that went, and that gave a lot of people confidence. Okay, this product works. Whatever we're hearing, it's not true because why would they choose to get the product again if it didn't work? They were going to get the money regardless. So that was the big launch between the two and how it differed. Jeuveau was a little bit different because then we took the approach like, hey, this is the same exact thing as Botox.
mhm,
It is, right? Whether you want to admit it or not, most people don't remember the launch of Botox because it was back in like '02, '03 when it really got going. A
mhm.
lot of people weren't. Some of these injectors were in middle school,
Right.
when it launched. They don't really know what it was like. Jeuveau with the same kilodalton size, the same technology, the same reconstitution, that approach, and then they were so innovative in the marketing. I
Mhm,
mean, say what you want about Jeuveau, I don't really care, but the Evolus marketing team really kind of hit the nail on the head with their marketing, how they presented online, what things they ran for their patients and their practices. To me, was super innovative. Their ordering online, I mean, you launched it with me. It was, checkout was easy. It was much like Amazon. They were the first company to do that. They were very innovative in that side. So that was fun, and that was how we kind of differed from what else was on the market when we launched it.
Did you, have the rewards when you launched it? Did they start that right
Yeah,
away? They did.
yeah. So that reward system, actually, funny enough, was some Mike Jafar, who led our marketing, he would probably yell at me right now. Who he's at Extra SA now, but
Yeah.
we already had that program at Prolinium. So when I launched Versa, that rewards program was already in play and wildly successful with Versa. So it was the okay, your patient comes in, you're going to get $50 off each syringe. Doesn't matter. And then for every 4 syringes you do that, we're going to give you a free one back in your inventory. So
Mhm,
that was a super cut through, which had never happened before because all of the other programs, reward programs, only really benefited the company and maybe the patient to a degree, but didn't do anything for your practice to run everyone else's programs, right?
mhm,
But with the Versa launch, we did that, and it was substantial. The patient got something, your practice got something, right
mhm.
back. Vo did the same, and yeah, the rewards program again, it's ingenious. It's ingenious. Reward the people that are promoting your product. Kind of a simple concept, but most companies, they don't do that. I mean, the Allergans, the Galdermas, they don't benefit you on their reward program. So yeah, again, the for Evolus to take that program and launch it, and I mean, it was brave of them. They were obviously bigger and had more money, and took a different approach to launch versus Perlinium when they brought out Versa because they went the 1099 route. But nonetheless, it took a set of balls for David to
David.
launch Jeuveau and use that right away. Come out with that. It was a big deal.
Right, and now they have their filler.
Yeah.
Evolus has their filler. Yeah. So, okay, so just looking ahead, what
Mhm.
kind of environment and team do you thrive in? You've done so many different things. Where is your
Yeah. I really like team culture with rep level. I'm not big on management. I don't like people overseeing, I don't need that. I guess at this, especially at this stage of my career, I don't need to be told to get up and go to work because I have a family of five I support on a solo income. So, working and doing that, I don't need that. Like, I will not thrive under a micromanagement situation. Like, I like having the independence and having an entrepreneurial type atmosphere, but also collaborating with other reps because I need to learn always different talk tracks or things come up, and that's how we kind of pull together and thrive in that environment. So for me, I don't need a lot of oversight, but I definitely like a team environment for sure.
Do you miss that with what you're doing now, or do you feel like you're getting enough of that going into the spas in derm?
As far as collaboration
Yes.
or yeah, so we've grown so much now. I mean, I was one of the first people 3 years ago here at Rion with Plated, and, we have, almost 35 reps now nationally.
Really?
There's 14 in my region alone in the Southeast. So we've grown tremendously in 3 years,
Mhm.
that I've been here. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think there's a degree of that. Early on, I fielded a lot of questions as people came on and kind of helped them understand like what was going to happen and what they were should be looking for and things of that nature. But yeah, we've grown a lot. So we I do have that now. In the beginning, yeah, there was very few of us to
Mhm.
talk with, but it's changed a lot.
So, what's your sweetest tip of the day?
It's never too late.
Okay.
Never too late to start. And if we're talking, in the aesthetic market, it's never too late to start. I mean, there's again, we talked about it earlier with the advancement and some of the technologies that we get to work with here in this industry. It doesn't matter your age, and you can always start. There's always something that we are able to offer somebody to help them look better, feel better, gain more confidence in this industry. But yeah, so it's never too late
All
to
right.
start.
I like that. So, how can the listeners get in touch with you?
So Naples at platedskinscience.com. That's my email. And then the Instagram, I had to change my Instagram. So it's plated skin science underscore Florida.
Okay.
That's my Instagram handle. Feel free to reach out, ask questions, even if it's not about the products that I have now, but anything about the industry. I'm happy to talk, chat, and give my opinion.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been very informative. You have a lot of history and you know a lot about the industry from back in 2000. So,
Yeah,
there's a seems like the people that I've talked to, especially the reps, they've been in it maybe 2, maybe 5 years, but you've really done a lot and come a long way. So, I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you so
well,
much.
thank you for having me. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the Glow Up and Get Real podcast. Here's to fearless beauty and real talk. Until next time.